I think we are online. Waiting for Twitch to connect. YouTube seems to be okay. Okay, both look green. Good to go. There's lunch break, so we were investigating scale models, preview issues. But then we decided to fix the camera new clipping, and a quick investigation revealed that the Y value, the height of the camera, was too low. So it was clipping the near plane. So I moved it from 10 to 15, which seemed to have fixed. I'm just going to double check. We still have that clipping. That's because I actually changed something else, then altered this. Let's see, make this 20, and it does. But then how far can we? Because it says if as I'm zooming out, I should be changing the Y value. The way the zoom in and out works is by changing the size property of the camera. Change Y value. But perhaps my knowledge how the size works in relation to the translation is very limited. I might actually leave this here for now because we still have no idea how big the game area will be. This kind of clipping maybe is okay. I'll still set this back to 10 because for some reason something appealing. Let's run it. So our trouble right now is this eggplant model. The scale is too big. I think it is um, in comparison to other models. Now, the relationship between the tree and the wheelbarrow is off too, because the wheelbarrow and the eggplants are coming from, let's say, more or less the same resource. Their scale is just too unrealistic. That being said, yeah, this is what I was trying to see, but I'm through the whole stem of this eggplant is cut off based on camera angle. That's when we wanted to play with this near clipping view. But it is, I think it is for sure. We have this eggplant too. So this way, yeah, we see more of the see the not that I think it's just going to. Here's the. I'm also noticing something else too. This mesh seems like the mesh in eggplant, but I was hoping it would also bring its children, because when it does bring its down with this whole structure here, but it's as if it's only coming with this bulk, has this curved tip. We don't actually see any. And this is also, I might have to re-import. We do have, let me close this. I will open this plant again. Maybe I actually did, after the re-import, I did not update the. Let's save this. Let's run the game. Now let's try to edit. Same problem again. Yeah, this is definitely just a stock. I'm not able to import the rest of the model. That stuff is sample level script. Now when I get the eggplant, get child 0 mesh is giving me this, but it's not giving this. I believe there's, how about this ultimate? This by itself is a mesh. If I change this to ultimate, to access the mesh, it's still multi-mesh mesh. I think I'm going to change the name. So I have a previous spatial node. Instead of changing the mesh of this mesh instance, preview node. Because the preview doesn't have to be interactable. I first kept this model here because I copied this from structure, interactable, click and it should respond to player behavior, but this preview object is going around by itself. It's since it won't have any of this. Maybe instead of assigning a mesh to a nodes mesh, not even this preview, script. We are going to enable the show. This maybe what we should is maybe this eggplant is going to be plant. We have to check for the possibility that we are adding more plant shape. So under normal conditions, there should always be um, we'll see that. So I have the eggplant. Uh, because it exists, I visible for this is empty. Also not this work is wow. We are just moving an instance of eggplant. Where is preview? Preview is right in this fact that it's overlapping the tree might be a lot taller. Going to that is the eggplant right there. It was just stuck in the space of this tree. So we actually did this. It's great. Here's the eggplant in all its glory. Okay, it's exciting. Really, really, really. Now the previous coordinates should not be handled manually. That will be attached to the mouse. When the mouse moves around, see this plant model move around. And when we click, we should have an put in that place. In that case, we will disable the preview, but make that model in the preview permanent. Yeah, I think I will really have to work out the scales because that's something I accounted for so far. Because this eggplant is a meter tall, and I think I had some grid structure here that I were like this, which I bet is going to correspond. In that case, both the tree and wheelbarrow. And then say this zoom level is kind of okay. Actually, eggplant. Zoom in one. Third one. This is the most close up you can. And I think this might be close enough that the default camera angle and the zoom level is, I think, okay. Because when you have mini plants, you look at your whole garden. There will be sections of it you can see. You want to zoom out to see, or to use the arrow keys to go there. You want to see things close up, so that, okay. Yeah, I think initially doing everything with sample models here, it threw me off. The plant that I know size, it's properly. I'm going to let the cat out. Okay, this is actually really exciting. All this hard work for guessing how the mesh system works and such. We'll see. Now let's do this permanent model placement. Now there is another architecture problem. We might have a node for non-interactable items, such as the house and trees in your neighbor's yard. Maybe in the game we will have a button where we can so that it doesn't interfere with the way you see your garden. So we could have a trees node, and then maybe this node is inside non-interactable. And I think it makes sense to have that in the sample. I was discussing early during the day that maybe we'll have scenario-based gameplay and it's just one level, and we might have different levels with so say is non-interactable. Here is a tree. Trees not. And let's also create an interface like that. Of course, it's spatial. Now, this is going to branch out so much because when you put an eggplant, essentially you put the eggplant in an area where there's dirt. Either that dirt is flat, or it's inside a raised bed, or inside a pot. So where it actually sits in the hierarchy is going to be, so we could properly serialize position of these objects, save and load the game. Let's see. I think I'm gonna clean up some of this stuff. I might put back the ground from game into this sample level. So there's um, for now, ground is going to be kept in game. We'll see. But we might actually, the CSG box, I think there is no preview has to stay. This mesh instance is just this purple box that actually has that interactable red outline. That's kind of a dummy thing. See, I think any real instance, mesh instance we will permanently create inside interactables will also be assigned interactable. So it could do its own uh, red outline, or it should respond to the because when the user clicks on that object, this is where we'll do the information lookup so that proper UI panels will be filled with the correct info. And this quad is this was just a sample quad that I was going to put a label to enumerate or run it. Read map is something using in the code here, which is no longer useful. This will all come from a map anyway, so this is kind of gone. Might be needed if I need it out. This is also the material we assign. No longer this. Mesh library is never used. Grid map, bye bye. And the model test here is what some initial model import. This is gone too. All right. Cleanup. So now we have to simulate this mesh instance interactable static body logic as part of the permanently placed eggplant under interactable node. But before we instantiate it permanently, let's finish off the cursor move. I believe that is still active when we do this. Not quite. This is where we were showing it, because whatever is interactable is giving. Okay, this was the conversation we were having. Whether the whole ground is interactable, it would actually, and then you will be able to place objects on top of each other. So some objects will be interactable. For now, okay, for now, let's do it this way. We're going to the trouble cleaning sample level and discussion of bringing the ground in level. This is nothing but a cube with why is this? I remember, okay, because this had something to do with the sun's blocking the sun. Yeah, because both sides were rendering and Okay, it's actually 1 by 1 cube or the 2 by 2 default cube, but it only scaled in the X and Z. So it looks like sort of this thin cube, short, and it's essentially using a dirt texture. It's not really. So close this up. Sample level. Come here. Need you essentially need something like this mesh instance. We can actually do this. So instead of purple, this is going to be dirt. Dirt. It's always going to be visible. So you are going to be centered. This scene doesn't have a light source. That's why it's good. Also, in the game scene, I think one was 1 pixel on would actually be sitting flat on this grid. So when we run this, yeah, this is where I have to separate. Should this ground object have an outline shader? And I think this actually has to go into its own method somewhere. Because what happens when mouse entered is a big topic. And what happens when mouse entered depends on the type of interactable. Is the interactable class? So we should branch out from it. We may even use node groups for this object. Um, for example, an interactable object, a bucket is an interactable object. You could store things inside a bucket. You could harvest your product, keep it in a bucket. It might make sense to show the bucket is filling, whether it's with water, dirt, or your produce. Now, other interactable items such as a wall of your house. If you want to place a trellis model, you will interact with the wall, so the trellis is snapped against the wall. The raised bed is an interactable item. When you click the raised bed while preview of an eggplant item is active, that's a different kind of interaction. Usually, and also interaction. The way some objects work. Let's say some stuff sitting in a bucket doesn't exactly interact with buckets. The way an eggplant interacts with the raised bed is going to consume the nutrition from it. So those two will have an active relationship. As the nutrition in the soil goes down, the eggplant will grow. But a bucket and its content won't have that kind of relation. Being said, where do we, when we branch out, where do we actually? And there is the whole dragging. Do we want to let the player lay out the raised bed by dragging and dropping, or sort of dragging an area, or by simply placing individual items? We could go the least expensive way of like this, because I think the other way of doing it will require us to write a state machine where in which mode the player is, whether it's the placement or the dragging, continuously placing things. The one of place, that's a separate. Let's keep the things most basic way first, then we'll actually more abstract and it. Okay, let's see. Need to answer a quick message. Might be a bit sensitive, so I'll just put the stream on a quick break, but I'll be back very soon. Okay, where to put this stuff? Enter. Good. It's the coordinates we are seeing. So good. Separate this. For now, I'm going to create some kind of function. It's called dump. This dump will have these two guys, and then these two guys. This is basically on or so. But mouse is exited. Good. Type the state of. So now this should actually work. So this is the position information. This is somewhere here. It's going to be minus. This is the 0, 0, 0. Same. So we should probably round it down. Quick question: does math round? Is it? Well, that's actually C sharp. It rounds one number. We actually round a vector. some stuff. Already have this script. Vector run. So vector plus has a run. Turns this vector with all components rounded to this is what with halfway cases rounded away from. Okay, that is promising. So instead of running it prematurely like that, we could actually first click position the vector, but we don't know that it's a vector. Here, run. So here is 0, 0, 0, 0. Here, still sort of in that grid. We are entering one in X. I'm gonna try to go to lower left. That should put us in -1, 0, minus. We're actually in the sort of -0 area. Here it's going to be -1. A little bit up here it's going to be 0, 0. Not sure if that -0 versus 0 will cause this problem. Might not, we'll see. And I'm thinking once we are over other interactable objects, then we should also see their coordinates. That's what I remember. Okay, so we are moving in the right direction, definitely. Now that we have this information, can we constantly pass this information to preview? In terms of performance, I have no idea whether it is reasonable to do so. But what if we emitted signal? Here's entity preview. Entity position. That it's always firing an entity position signal. And this is responsible for keeping the cursor position. Whether we are placing something, but it always knows if we are placing where the position. And we have to this thing now is going to take click position. That is that. Now preview should most likely have a script that is listening to that position change, so it could position its child to that position. And I think maybe preview should have its own script, not just for this simple reason, but for another fact that some items won't always occupy one by one grid, and the way their pivot is placed in the model, you have a 2 by 2 model. You put the pivot right in the middle or in one of the four corners. And when you do it in four corners, do you choose the corners that are facing up or the bottom if the model is supposed to grow from bottom to. And then if preview is gonna have its own script, preview maybe shouldn't stay like a simple node here inside sample. Preview, if it's its own scene, could be part of different levels. So it would be instantiated. We'll only know about what to show as preview, where to put it, maybe by where to put it, going back to the pivot point and the dimensions of the object. It will all be maybe taken care of inside the preview scene and its own script. So it makes much more sense to save this branch as a scene. And we get into this is the now. Let's stick with preview for now. We might have different types of preview, but by preview we understand we are actually the model. This is the placement preview. Good enough. Side here, we'll need script. It's going to be like this. It's going to be put inside scripts. Check the questions. We do not. Um, since we bother to have it inside, I think it was level for the sample. We do this on entity preview, and instead of level connecting to the event bus, preview scene itself can connect to know when it's supposed to show entity preview. Um, excuse me. In spring is coming. the sound of allergy. It's gonna go into preview as hardcoded. It's fine. You don't need to do this in because you are just at this. Now there is still that possibility of adding more child. Um, I think there was a way to remove. Definitely not. We just do a while loop, or we could kind of keep a state here. It's like, well, I'm trying to add a child. Don't add it. This is okay, right? Still doing something. So when the entity preview is here, and also we said we should connect to another event, which is entity position. When entity position happens, is so what mechanism, interactable mechanism, is firing up the position and pass, which is then coming down in. So we need something entity. This is where I was debating, maybe not the most resource efficient way of doing it, but is your position. This is going to be vector, your position. This will be passed. Your your preview nodes will be the. So this is all firing up. That's okay. Planting, tomato, retail and paste buy. Fuck. Okay. So somewhere in previous preview node, I should have 50 minus innovate. Yep, I do have. And the preview itself, that is totally my bad. I believe this is kind of. But then I also hope that this position is. By just storing this, that's that. But when I'm previewing it, I'm also not updating the translation into. I think this is working in the right direction, because if we put shortcut keys to rotate the preview model, we could also do that stuff here by responding to entity rotate, and it updates rotation information, which then updated in the preview. Then all that information will be passed to different script to permanently the fact that it did not put it here but put it here is reassuring. Um, this script is only running once. Edit and done. Does not process, which is the problem. So this, I'm thinking, if this is firing because we are moving, and if we are updating it here, we may as well actually this way. So then you don't need to store this. We may have to store that for passing the to outside. That's this is essentially the same. Okay. So continue. There you go. Besides the pivot point, we have object. And this is where actually it overlaps the other model. And in cases like that, we disable the placement or not. That kind of I think error checking will be happening most likely preview. Shall see. See. Definitely moving in the right direction. Now, whether we go with custom cursor or not, separate issue. Because if I hide the cursor, it look like the plant itself is the. You kind of see where you are planting in. Why do you need an? See, this is that clipping plane I was. Actually fires that mouse exited because it thinks that since the camera is not properly rendering this, it thinks it's escaping the section, not like it's as if there's some kind of layer here. The minimum point here is -5, -5, but I think if I zoom in and come down here, it's -3, -2. So that's actually the effective distance here, but it changes with the zoom out. Here, if I come, those values will be lower because there's more distance to traverse. But this clipping plane is still the problem. Okay. This is kind of cute too. Like the preview itself is zoomed in and zoomed in. I zoom in, see the close up of the preview if I want to. Very particular in my placement, not the YOLO actually. This level of zooming up. Chelsea. Now this object interaction here, or the preview interaction with the existing objects, that topic will be super important because I am planning to have companion planting. Some plants thrive if they are planted with other plants. Say you plant nasturtiums with cucumbers. Some insects are repelled because nasturtium is either the color or the smell or something is driving the insects away. That way you don't need to use insecticide or pesticide on your. So you will be able to plant maybe two things in the same slot, and their models will be maybe overlapping each other. Decent way, hopefully. I believe that version will not be in vertical slice that I made off. Nevertheless, basic type of collision check we must do. between intractable and non-intractable. Else, when we press the escape key, we are essentially triggering on entity preview cancel. We should also set the game mode to something that indicates that we are previewing an entity. Therefore, left mouse click will trigger a permanent placement. Now we can actually see if it's permissible or not, and give the player feedback with the cursors, showing a disabled cursor or not. But hitting the escape should definitely clear things so that further click doesn't place something. Let's write more. On entity preview. When it is cancelled, essentially we are hiding. And whatever thing we are going to do in function where we do the placement, maybe we could just have a very basic check of like, well, are you hidden? Well, if you're hidden, then don't do shit. If you are visible, therefore we are previewing and we meet other conditions, meaning we could place things in and around each other, and that will trigger its own setup. We need cancel. I might also it's always a hot topic. You write it like this, therefore this. Because all this is going with simple words. I think even Godot itself is both. I think it's mostly past tense. There's this edge case here. It's exiting. It's not exactly exiting. And then things like this is generic enough. Don't say it's ready yet. It's ready. When you hide it, when you throw it, thrown or hidden. I believe it's usually in past tense. Like I mean, one may argue that this should have been children sorted. Maybe yes. Because if this is sort children, then this should be change script. When we change script, this is what we want to fire. So sort children, this is what we fire. So like one of these should be the. But like anything else in real life, when you are making big things like this game engine, there will always be some cases that you'll miss. naming convention. It's always difficult to follow. Well, in the end, it kind of doesn't matter. It does, but because we are writing our own, I'm really not worried if other people are going to see this. This is as if the game can either be paused or resumed. It's sort of like a, what is that, like in English, simple past, and here's a past continuous. We are still previewing, still positioning. Maybe here we do a one-off thing. So that being said, inside preview, one entity preview cancelled. I kind of knew. What is triggering, and let's also move. Most likely in the game script we are going to have that would be inside. I may have to I don't think I will remove the default input map. How do you even remove? Just disable everything and it goes away? I think I'm already using the page up and page down is doing the camera. Uh, not quite. Yeah, page down is actually overload or camera rotate right. So here's my chance to change it. Page down. Okay, its reference is there, but it's not going to be just a dead zone. That's interesting. There's some kind of a delete area here that I drag and. Anyway, is there something about escape here? And I think it is time I created an thing, whatever. And actually, already, I already did. Am I even using escape? Might have thought of implementing. Okay, escape is when the calendar is open and we hit escape. The close button. Okay, I want to show you this. Here's a panel. Right clicking should actually close this. It's going to be right now. UI. And how do we fit the calendar into the regular UI? Should that be part of the UI stack or not? Interesting. I think we should make this part of your stack, because although this was useful to test it when the calendar script was open here, or the calendar UI, I think monitoring where the escape happens sounds more like it belongs to game script. And once we are there, we could utilize the UI stack to close last opened UI. And if this calendar happens to be the last one, then it closes it. Okay, so something like this is going to be taken away from here. When calendar is about to be shown, this should add itself to event paths, to the, not this, this UI push. Sorry, not connect. Why did I disable this? Event pass, emit signal, UI push. What are you pushing? You are the calendar script, you are pushing yourself. Now in here, when the escape thing is clicked, and here should the escape key open the game menu or start closing the UI? For now, I'll go for the closing the, and maybe we'll make that an optional game settings. So you are going to emit a signal UI. As long as there is something to pop, you'll just keep. We went to all this trouble because escape should also cancel the preview. That's why. It should also cancel. Aha. But here's the thing. If a panel is open somewhere, maybe we have these UI panel draggable. We pulled it to the side. We clicked an item in the. Now we are in the preview mode. We are deciding its location. Now when we press the escape key, we want to disable the preview so we could pick something else from the. We wouldn't necessarily want to cancel both the preview and close the. So some kind of if check here. If we are in preview mode, so we might have to implement some kind of state machine. This in this game mode. Oh, I remember some state machine implementation through nodes, and each one has a script, and then it acts like a GD quest has tutorial. Might be worth the effort to do that. The less work we do, the better and faster we might. Because I'm already sidetracking a lot of this. can we do something like, what if we first check if preview is cancelled? If it's cancelled, then maybe it'll turn true or false, then maybe we won't proceed. Preview can, when preview is cancelled, we are hiding. I mean, this is where we might do some other stuff. Okay, first things first. First check if this preview is cancelable. Then you could worry about having another panel open here and both closed. Ta-da! Now preview is canceled. Awesome. Because if this is going to return something, what is it going to return? Only comes down once and that's it. This actually has to fire up another thing. This actually connects to listen to if the preview cancelled happened or not. I think the easiest way to do, we might have multiple screens because this is all discussion. Could do it this way. We could ask UI stack if you have something in the stack. Is stack, this is going to return stack. I think this is the difference clear and empty. Clear, empty is the array, but empty method actually checks whether it's empty or not. Returns true if there is empty. Because it's tempting to use this to empty the array, but that's it. So there is no method is clear. Empty is giving. Is stack empty. Return. If it's or not, just return. Here's your thing. So you come in, say, if UI stack is stack empty, false, then keep popping the UI. This way it's going to be safe. Some. All right. It's better and better by the. I'm going to myself some tea. It's been an hour and 15 minutes of stretching legs. I'll come back. So I'm putting the stream on break. So I'll be back shortly. Okay. So to recap, I think big wins today. Recap. I may be including things that were done last week, or at least the base work, groundwork. But we are now able to open individual panels, right click anywhere on the screen to close the panel. I believe calendar is now part of this logic that when I right click, it should always start closing the last open item, and it will actually fall back to the first open. So first right click should close the calendar. Another right click should close this panel. Working fine. Planting logic here so far, with the exception of buying it and putting it in inventory, but a similar way, choosing anything from a UI which should initiate the preview is it was working on 15 minutes ago. With I don't see the mouse. Oh, this should be firing. See, it is not. We'll look into that. But we also did the escape key, which is disabling the preview mode. We also just implemented this case where we are in preview mode, but pressing escape key will um, will close the UI screens as long as there's something in the stack. Actually, this should probably be else, because otherwise it still happens. But I don't think this was the problem with the thing. This is working fine. We have this calendar open. The game, mind you, oh, I think this is what happened. That's why the pre seemed to, because when I closed the the calendar, I only disabled its visibility, but I did not put the game back to resumed. Clicking escape will close this because UI stack is shown state and put this back to its hidden state, but the game is essentially not running. And even here, the escape key didn't work uh, because this input is no longer working. Because but it should actually be working, because this is where we were also process. Okay, I think I know why this problem happened. Calendar here before, when I had the input, escape key was essentially triggering the calendar's close button, and the close button was actually resuming. This is the problem. So I may have to go back to the recap, but I think there's a slight edge case here, because otherwise everything is preview is working. Escape will disable the preview. We are now looking for that case where the UI panel is open. We want to disable the. Can we do that this way? So we are under preview mode. Clicking equipment will trigger this. We are still in preview mode. Pressing escape did what? So I'll fix this calendar pause logic later, but let's this part. So under UI stack, I believe we should have one item, the equipment panel. Correct. So is the stack empty? False. Should be. Therefore, your first priority is to pop the item from the stack. Yet we don't see it. So it would be, it would have to come. Oh, this might be that's, do I pop? What am I popping? Yeah, this is the problem. See, I depended on this being null or not. But now that it's null, that is a problem. It should not be null. If that's the case, I'm basically saying, well, I don't know which one you are going to remove. So nothing specific, it's just null. This maybe that is the reason why calendar did not. But that actually might have a different problem with that pause state. Pause button is. So here we are under preview mode. This happened. Open a new panel. And while we have both the panel open and we are under preview mode, pressing escape will first close the menu, and pressing escape again will disable the preview. Now we may have to reverse those cases. Meaning, if the stack is empty, doesn't make sense. Right? If the stack is empty, what is there to close? If the stack is not empty, the empty is false. So let's put some human readable if stack has something, interface is open. When interface is open, we don't want to close that interface because that interface might be the event. The player may want to first cancel the preview, so they may select a different model too. So it's better to cancel the preview than closing the. Only if the preview is cancelled, then it will fall down to this. Try this. Here's our model. Different panel. Both are open. Escape will first close the preview. And another escape will close this. Should have. What is going on? But here's the problem. This is where we might actually have to go with this state machine, because we are still falling under this case. Stack is not never going to be. Stack is actually full. Since it's always matching this case, it's always trying to kill the preview. It's as if I got to know if we are in preview mode. It is, cancel it. Not then start popping up by screen. Unlike UI stack, preview part of the level. Now, this is kind of how I'm constructing my game. Sample level will be swapped with different level size. Each one of them will have a preview scene. It might be possible to ask the if it's something. On the other hand, it might be polluting the event bus. But when we are doing this, could create a variable something like, again, you might have to clean up, but this preview, depending on view on entity preview, so event bus is preview is going to be false because we are not. When we are positioning, but we are always kind of, we are far. When we are displaying it, and this stuff has to be true. And then in the game script, if we are is previewing, if we are previewing, then this is simple enough that we don't need it because the code is the. If we are previewing, first cancel the, then when we cancel it, it will be false, therefore it will fall into else case, then we start popping the. We shall test this. Here's pre equipment. Here's another panel. Escape preview, escape. Calendar. Game is paused. Pressing escape is no longer running the game. That is one of the problems. The order is working though. Only pressing the close key is resuming the game because it is done. So this used to be triggered when we had an input function here that actually tracked the escape key. No longer triggered. Instead, it's a hidden state is controlled through event bus and the UI stack. How do we for this? see. Some music help. I think this goes into the territory of encapsulation. When the UI stack is calling the UI's hide method, this should also be responsible for a particular UI to trigger the game pause or because I didn't actually check for the case when we calendar, but we are adding stack or not. But I guess I must be adding it because how does it know? How does the game know calendar is part of UI? But I did that for the calendar script here about the show. So that way, okay, can I actually do this about to sort of like hidden calendar? So that way I don't have to override the hide method. About to show pop-up hide. When the pop-up is hidden, that is it. Write it here. Instead of overriding the hide with you. When this shit happens, it's also which then I actually have to remove this because when we hide it, it's going to call this. When the close button is pressed, we are essentially triggering this, which is signal, and sorry, a signal, and the event handler is here. This should actually work. Open this, which is about to show, pauses the game, pressing escape will use the hide method of the calendar, which is going to trigger the signal pop-up hide, and should resume the game, and that chain of event handles the label of this button. This is going to be the correct icon, the pause icon, and play icon. Further task, but pressing one more escape here should close the planting page. Okay, awesome. We could even take this a step further. I am in preview mode. I opened equipment panel. I opened calendar panel. Now, calendar panel is pausing the game. So the preview functionality is no longer working. That's fine. Pressing escape will resume the game and preview position will automatically move that eggplant model to where this cursor is. Oh, it won't because we prioritize the preview cancellation first. Now clicking the escape will start closing calendar and this menu. First the game will run and that's kind of a design choice, but I think canceling the preview is a high priority. Sounds like a good choice, except when the player opens calendar. Since the game is paused, pressing escape at that level I might actually do something like this for some panels, such as calendar. Once it's opened, it should also cancel the preview mode. Because then it kind of looks weird that you have this thing stuck in the back. Because it is essentially pausing the game. Yeah, let's do that so that it's sort of consistent and meaningful. So when we are about to show, we are pushing ourselves to the UI stack, but we also want to trigger another event, which is this. Try again. So you are in planting mode. By this. Here's the. Okay. Now, because is previewing false, pressing escape won't first trigger the preview close because it's already cancelled, so it will start hiding calendar and this screen. Good. Good. I might go for another hour maybe. The weather looks nice. I could take a walk too, but we'll see. It seems like today I'm making a lot of progress in the right directions. Let's also set the minimum size to 1600 by 900. More real estate, more standard widescreen proportions. Always look at. Now, at some point, I will have to revamp the uh, lighting, which was the main struggle on Saturdays in Saturday's stream. Because I think there is still some artifact here. You see these lines? Some stuff looks awkward. Now this kind of looks weird because we have this dirt noise texture around. But otherwise, let's actually fast forward to noon. Speaking of which, I just thought of a functionality which now seems obvious. Instead of advancing the time 8 hours, which is going to put us somewhere like 25:35, it's like maybe 1:35, 1 in the morning. Okay, we may want to have separate sectioning that we basically say, you know, fast forward to tomorrow's noon. So we don't need to know the minute and hour wheel. Or we could just say uh, morning. So then it fast forwards to 6 in the morning. Or whatever that morning sunrise will be in the game. The only caveat there from the user experience point of view, say say it's 9 in the morning. When you say noon, well, that's 3 hours ahead. But if you choose morning, that's actually the next day's morning. So you're essentially moving time 21 hours, which is okay. I suppose the player will understand that, well, morning is the next available morning. When you say evening, it's still during the same day, it's the evenings. I think that should be, could have a separate section there. Why not? Let's make it a bit more user friendly. I think I'm going to close all these scripts. So calendar script, go to the UI here. I think we need to put some kind of divider here. This is everything. That. So I think we need something else. Well, this is already inside another VBox container, so I think just another one. VBox. Mind you, we need HBox because it's going to be left to right. What values do we have? We have the morning, 6 o'clock. We have noon. We have evening. So it could be like 9-ish sunset or 6 o'clock in the afternoon. That's what we did. That sounds more like a radio button, horizontally aligned. Let's do that. So let's go with HBox. We can always change. You move yourself up here. And inside you need radio. Radio, which is essentially a checkbox, which is checkable button. But this is only doing that sort of slidey thing. This is essentially checkbox. And here we do group thing. Whether this is I believe it was a modification on checkbox to have 3 checkboxes, but they act like radio buttons, which is kind of a toggle thing. I think that was done through group. Did this just turn into a round shape from checkbox because I did this? I don't think it did. Yes. I had the right assumption. Morning. This is going to be a morning. It is going to be noon. It is going to be evening. This is going to occupy as much space as possible, and here you are going to take as much space as possible with expand. The text here is going to say evening. Here you are going to say noon. Okay. We might need some kind of guiding text and also page divider. Was it divider? Separator. Page separator. This separator will be between this and that. How much time would you like to fast forward? And this is basically to fast forward to fast forward to the next. Maybe it's like center. This should be inside a different structure. Control structure. Here's the control, which is should be vertical shift. V-Bucks. And let's label this as, this is kind of a um, fixed amount, because it's going to fix the timestamp instead of arbitrarily choosing. So then this will have a label, and then this will be part of it. Label has to go to the top of this. There you go. This VBox container should most likely have thing, and we actually, it's the minimum size. 360 height 300. Okay, it's always going to be centered. Yep, that button group did the trick. Interacting with any one of these should disable this. So then the player knows that it is either going to move a fixed amount or a variable amount. Which is kind of easy to do because we already have the change on, let's see, when any date value change, we're updating the labels. When this, we should find the button group and we should change the press to. My only question is, what kind of object? It's a group, button group. Let's get some help. It's a button, therefore this should have button group. Actually, it's a base button group, button group. When you get a button group, you could get all the buttons or you could get press button. Returns the current press button. When I get this, I can change. Okay, you do this. You should also do this. All you need to do is access warning button. Just any one of those buttons will do. Evening button. I don't care. This should have a group. This group thing will have get pressed button, and you just change the press to see calendar. Morning is selected. You do this, disable. Noon, select this, done. Evening, change hours, done. Next thing is when we hit approve, whether we are in this situation or in this. Because imagine this case. If we have interacted with these areas, none of this is selected. Therefore, when we hit approve, we actually want to go for variable time forwarding. If there's a selection, we want to favor this or the top part. Yes, that object. When approve is pressed. And this is where we do that date normal. So we want to also do the time difference between the next morning, noon, and evening instead of calculating a dynamic date field. I think we need an if else case here and then a new function, two new functions. It's fixed amount. It's as if we are doing time travel to the timestamp, which is noon or not. In this case, this will have something. That something will be calculated. If we are doing dynamic time travel, let's do a time travel to timestamp. Really, okay. Dynamically, sort of. This is going to be that is already if evening group get pressed button. This is where we were checking get buttons if this is empty, but then we have this as is giving you all the buttons that have the group, not the ones that turns to current press base button. If this is not group get pressed, if this is null, then you do time travel really else you do time travel timestamp. Either way, you hide when this happens, print something and return. You don't want to do this yet. even in group, null instance. Oh, because I have nothing. Yeah, before I actually had selected. Yeah, null. So when there's nothing selected, it will actually, we should actually do something. If it's not, then get the. Yeah, it's kind of weird, like, but if there's a get press button, then that get press button and make its state false. So when we do this approve case, this should move to 373 minus 365. It's going to move to year 2, day 8. When we do this noon approve, we should see something. Probably saw something, but it's all over the place. Let's stop outputting this tractable. Tractable is in sample level here. Don't output this, please. Calendar, noon, true. And now that actually I scrolled up, it's screwing up. Noon, approve, something, good. Good, good, good. Now on to calculating that something. Let's say noon. There are interesting cases. I could perhaps when you are pressed, you set a value some. What that morning value will be is going to be geography specific, but for dependent. But we do 6, 12, and 18. So we are now keeping track of hours at 6, 12, and 18 as the 4-hour mode. So we need to store that something are fixed time travel hour. I think I should make this a dictionary. And this is going to be intro or fixed. This is about the timestamp. Time travel to timestamp. This is about time travel stamp. That is a proper name. This is a dictionary. This will have hour value 0. This will also have a minute value 0. This will be dynamic, or this will be calculated according to the city later after the demo. Right now we are only interested in changing. Now, how much we want to fast forward this something. And I think I need a copy of this, to be honest, because here, even though we are not moving here, sometimes we don't want to move year month, but we always pass 0, meaning we are only passing the difference. This is what we are trying to calculate based on difference, which is essentially, let me go with this first. I think these three values will always be 0. Even they will be 0. But for staying true to the way I wrote other functions, it has to be. And I will only alter the hour value right now and maybe minute value after we have built the demo. So I need to now find the absolute value between the morning, noon, evening hour values and the current date value. Date, set date. This date, however, is only the date we want to fast forward. It is not giving us the current date though. Where is current date? Calculate under sun. Where is game? Game. Sun. Script. Yeah. There's a time function. That is the. This may have to be pulled to somewhere higher level. Because when we say noon, right now the time will be 11:27, so we mean 33 minutes later. But it's past noon. We are essentially moving the hour values. So we kind of want to move it 11 hours, 23 minutes. So the calendar script is not accessing the time value. Funny thing is this. Are we actually? We are. Hmm. This is definitely a utils thing. Let's just move all this shit to S3. Keep saying that. Now is the time. Just say time. Time and date. Maybe this file will be subdivided. What is time? Even this is going to be. This is only adding those. This is taking a date, consolidating stuff. It is not interacting with any other system. It takes a date argument. This too, first and second. Calculate cumulative days. So then this time script is only going to be responsible for managing time you. Maybe after all this, I may be able to move singleton. And that singleton will essentially be saved. We kind of have something. We have data. This game data. Right now, this game data has hello planting import. This could actually have time information. Let's take this date, stick it in here. This is also. Did I do this? This is the one I should, or I forget. Yeah, this is okay. This date will be game data, data, game data. Right? Time to order some food and so that way I might be working for another half an hour. Yeah, I'm actually hungry. Okay, let's wait for their confirmation. I'll keep an eye on that screen. So let's go back to Godot. This is where I was doing the game data in game. I also, I think, have to indentation. Order confirmed. People will be fed. Game data date. Date is this is that structure that I previously said I don't quite like. Game data part of data. Because I think there was a viewer who discussed that C sharp could extend from a dictionary, so we could just use kernel to add and remove stuff, but not quite so here. So this is date. We just have to slap this in of a date. Another one. What's that? Save. But here's where things get a little bit interesting too, because this cumulative days is now part of utils too. Utils, utils, cumulative days calculation. I think I can do copy paste here too. This date is on. Actually, you know what? Date twin rate. This date was actually where there's double date, so that I pull the game date. But this is date twin rate. This isn't. I don't think this is used because this is where I was having that fast forwarding. I disabled it, but nevertheless, I should fix the reference calculations. Game that is. This is where I was doing the dynamic twin duration calculation. This is the game date versus edit. So what should be changed about? Head date isn't declared in utils. Date is future date. Is this date? Game resumed. Date day. That is done. Add date. This is where we were doing the timer time for the every time the timer ticks. And here's also what is the current game date and what we are adding. Console date is also now. This is also going to be broadcast to the sun move. Speed mode signals. It should be good as much as possible. So we'll do something like this in fixed timestamp. This absolute value. As long as this is working, that's good. Fast forward fast, normal, pause, fast forward after pause, that's working, pause, normal mode after pause, everything is working. Calendar, fast forward 2 hours, 3 hours, that's good. Now we are here. Move it 1 year, 1 month or so. Let's calculate this. Year should be 2, but then 3 because we are moving 2 months. So that's 60 days. 2 weeks, 14 days, that's 74. 81 days. 441, 41, 35, 76. Year 3 days, 76, 22. Good. Brain is still working. Now we are going to orders being prepared. Good. Now we have to do this something. I am now able to access the game time. That is a big, big, big bonus. Data. Game data. Date. This date will have an hour value. This is the part that I have to check. Which timestamp are we moving? That is going to be part of Punk on timestamp pressed. And this is going to be the time. It's going to be the hour. We are going to pass. We are going to pass string. So it's timestamp. Because I don't want to hard code it here 6, 12, 18. Those values will later be calculated according to the sun's sunrise and sunset. So here we will have it based on timestamp. In the case of morning, yes, sir. Timestamp hour will be. This is where I can hard calculate later. Um, time travel timestamp. Now we go into calendar. Well, this this is going to be the string. Say we'll do something like this for going to. Oh, now all three radio buttons will set the time travel timestamp hour value to their respective value, which will then be calculated here. The difference between this value, I will stamp hour value. Now imagine case like this. Say the hour value is 11, existing time, daytime. The hour value is 11 in the morning somewhere. It's let's say 1 minute before noon. We want to move to the next noon value. So the difference here will be 1. But it is 1 only if it's 11:00. Then I have to count for the minute. If it's less than, if the difference is 1, I think I'm making this more complicated because in utils I should already be writing the time difference because there's add time that only adds 2 time values. But then the problem is when you say noon, which noon are you in day's noon? But I think that's simple. Because imagine this. If if current date hour is less than 12, then we still have time to noon. What else? If we are, by the way, I should be doing this for the morning meal. Let's start with the noon. If we are if it is not noon yet, yep, then it is going to be something utils. Instead of add date, date difference. This is going to give us that date. This is also, does this know which? It doesn't. This is going to be past the real game data, but this should be generic enough that it should accept first date and a second date. Should give this. Its only job is this. Return this. Now, the assumption here is that second date's year is always bigger than first year, but we might have cases where we might be interested in a past date and how long ago it was. So the date difference is going to give us the time that is passed since a previous date. So we need to calculate the absolute value. So it should be like this shit. That way we are okay. I also want to write this better. Humans will read this. That is done. Now, date difference is going to take the game data, date value, and it's as if I need a few more filter functions. This arbitrary noon value. Because I'm gonna have to, in order to take the difference, I'm gonna have to pass weird shit like this. Date, game data, date, year. Take the current year, take the current month, week, only to set the hour value to 12 so that I could find the difference between the value before noon and just to noon. So then I'm going to be writing some weird stuff here. Instead, this should also be, which makes me think that now that 80% of utils has turned into a time utility function, most likely we'll have time utils. Stuff like that. Funk. We could actually have something like today's current noon. Most next most imminent noon. Upcoming noon. That is the one. If it's less than 12, you have time until noon. So it's upcoming noon, which also going to return this data, game date here. this day, similar to this. Hour is 12. And minute is 0. That is the one. And similar to this, we are going to upcoming morning. If the only sheet that is different is the 6, 12, and 18, upcoming timestamp. Could be date stamp, but timestamp is a. Here we have the timestamp string. Okay. We will have match. Basically 6, 12, 18. Did we write somewhere? Where did I write time? Calendar. This is the thing we need. This is what something inside time travel timestamp. This is this. So we'll do this. Where okay. Bye bye. Here's your hour. Here's your fix things. And even this will be calculated according to one. Upcoming timestamp. You no longer need 3 functions. So what we need now in calendar is this. We want to take the difference between current date and utils coming timestamp, and that timestamp is whichever button is clicked, which is it's like the lowercase of. I'm afraid I'm going to leave this in a very awkward situation, and then the next day in the morning the stream starts up with some struggles. When I do this, should I stop? Hard time. Stream. When we do time travel freely, should also set that case to A. We kind of don't need any more. We could this could be, this is as if this is going to set this, and then I might actually match it according to this, and maybe even this will actually go into this guy here. because it says if I'm duplicating some effort here. Because this is no longer, yeah, because I'm already calculating that timestamp in the upcoming timestamp based on this value. Because when I say morning, give me the next upcoming morning. So I'm going to disable this, sorry. Here's the thingy. This should give me the difference. What if you should output diff, then return, and then maybe we'll do this after. Run. It's 11:28. When I say next noon, I should be able to see what? I saw something okay. I saw 1 hour 28 minutes. I was expecting to see 0 hour. Let's run this again and I'll show you what I mean. Calendar, pressed it. If I say noon, when I go in, I should see 33 minutes to the next noon. Instead, I see 1 hour 27 minutes, as if it actually picked the current with upcoming timestamp. Hour 12. Date difference. But see, here's the date difference. The problem. So it actually does this 0 minus 27 existing. This has not been tested to simplistic. This has to be properly done, but I think it's moving in the right direction. So tomorrow morning, most likely, I'll be fixing the calendar, fixed timestamp, fast forwarding. This is of course a deviation from the placement of the 3D models. Maybe I'll cut this part out so we could actually focus on the preview stuff more. But that's it for tonight. So see you tomorrow morning.